Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today is all about the Slovenian Mountain Trail. I'm getting a lot of questions about the trail, so yeah, this is just going to be some information about the trail, some things you should know before planning your hike, or some things that will actually help you to plan your hike. So let's go! The Slovenian Mountain Trail is believed to be the oldest long distance hiking trail in Europe. I say it's believed to be because there's conflicting information on the internet, but I think we just take that. It's the oldest long distance hiking trail. It was opened in 1953. The trail is 617 kilometers long and climbs around 37,000 meters of elevation gain. That's 37 kilometers of vertical distance. So by the end you will have climbed Mount Everest at least a few times. And it definitely feels like that. You're also descending 37,000 meters, so it is really steep. Along the way you will climb 21 different peaks, including the highest summit of Slovenia, which is Triglav. I think it's incredibly nice that you will stand on top of a mountain almost every single day. I didn't have that in any other hiking trail so far, so this is probably one of the reasons why this is my favorite, because I just love summiting peaks. The trail is divided in 5 different areas. So you will start in Maribor, which is in the northeast of the country. From there you will start heading west. First you will cross the Pohorje area, which is like really green, lush rolling hills. It's kind of nice walking, not as steep, but it's a really nice warm-up. Then you will reach the Kamnik-Savinja Alps, and as I like to say, they really kick your ass. It's going to be really steep. This is where you will first need your VIA FERRATA kit, but it's also one of the most magnificent and beautiful areas of the whole trail. After that, it gets a bit easier again when you traverse the Karavangs, which are dividing Austria and Slovenia, and from there you will end up in Triglav National Park. It's in the northwest of the country. Triglav National Park is not only home to the highest mountain of Slovenia, it's also the busiest area of the whole trail. You will see lots of day hikers here and lots of people doing other trails, like for example the Juliana Trail, which is a loop in the Triglav National Park. So in this time you have to make sure that you reserve the huts ahead of time. I will talk more about the huts later. After Triglav National Park you will hike south and approach the Adriatic Sea. The trail ends in Ankaran, which is a small, I don't want to say town, but it's a very small town by the coast. And actually, if you didn't know, Slovenia has a little strip of coast sandwiched in between Italy and Croatia. And this is the end. From Ankaran, you can either take a bus to Trieste or a bus to Koper, and from there go back by train. You can also hike to any of these towns. They are not far away from the end. So when you reach the end, you will have seen everything. You have seen the highest point of the country and you will end at 0 meters above sea level. So it's really amazing that you can combine all of these different landscapes into one hike. And I think that's really what makes this trail so nice. And together with some easy hiking and some mountaineering, I think it's the perfect combination if you like a bit of a challenge, but also some days of just walking. This trail has everything. The best time to start is after the middle of June, depending on the snow conditions. If you start after June, you're unlikely to encounter any snow before Triglav National Park. But if you start earlier, that is for example in May, you have to prepare for snow, and I would actually not recommend to start that early because especially in the parts where you're really high and have to climb a lot, I think it's very dangerous to hit the trail in the snow. You also should make sure that you're already through or past Triglav National Park by the middle of September, because that's when the huts are closing and there's the first risk of snow again. So by the middle of September you should be done with the highest mountains. Most people will need around 35 days or more to hike the trail, but you can finish in as little as 28 days. You can be even faster than that, but you have to consider that on this trail the distance is not really the limiting factor, but the daily amount of height that you have to climb up. My first hike, it took me 28 days and I had really great weather. I had not a lot of rain. And on my second hike, I had a lot of rain and bad storms, so the weather can really decide whether or not you will finish fast or not so fast. But generally, I would recommend that you take as much time as you need, because it's really sad to be rushing through such beautiful scenery and feeling like you don't have enough time to enjoy all of it. So I would really recommend to have more time than not enough. There are 55 mountain huts along the trail. Wild camping is generally not allowed, but in some parts it's tolerated. In Triglav National Park, it's definitely not allowed. and there is also a fine if someone catches you doing it. So please respect nature and don't camp in Triglav National Park. The rest, it really depends. Maybe you can also ask the hut wardens and camp in front of the hut if you really want to camp. But I think that also these mountain huts are like part of the culture, and it's really nice to check them out, and they serve lots of nice food and traditional dishes. So I think it's really nice to just pay a visit and enjoy your stay. It's also nice to connect with other hikers and just talk with some people if you feel like you want to do that. So I can only recommend to stay in the huts. There are also some bivouac shelters along the way. They are marked on the map, so you can find them. And usually there's just some space to sleep and nothing more than that, so that's really nice. I have slept in one of them and I really enjoyed it, so I think it's a really nice thing to do. What is really important, this trail is not like other hiking trails. It's really more of a mountaineering expedition in some places and not just hiking. So you will need special climbing equipment like a helmet, a VIA FERRATA kit and a climbing harness. Make sure you already know how to use these things before you go, because if you have to figure it out once you're at the VIA FERRATA, then that's a bit too late. Also, please don't underestimate this trail, because there's a lot of serious exposure, and if you are afraid of heights, I would definitely not recommend to do this. The resupply can be done in the trail towns. There's a village or a town every 3 to 5 days. I think the longest stretch is around 5 to 6 days without food in Triglav National Park, but you don't really have to worry too much about running out of food, because you can always have a hot meal at the mountain huts. They are quite cheap, I would say. You can get a really nice hearty stew or soup for around 5 to 6 euros at the huts. They also serve some sausages or strukli, which is like a traditional Slovenian dish. I really recommend to check it out. But yeah, so by eating on the huts, sometimes you can not only support the local people, but also lighten your pack load by not carrying so much food. This is generally special about hiking in Europe. I know that in the US they don't have such mountain huts, but I think it's really nice, because if the weather is really bad, you can always go to the mountain hut, you can wait out a storm, you can even wait out several days if you have to. So I think it's always a nice option to have that. The public transport to and from the trail is generally really good. I was actually surprised how great everything worked out on my first hike. So yeah, you can get to the starting point in Maribor by public transport. You can take a train to Maribor and then a bus to the starting point of the hike. You can also walk, but it's quite a long walk, and you have to start directly with an ascent, so I would recommend to take the bus to the trailhead. And getting away from the end point is also quite easy. There's a big train station in Koper, which is very close to the end, in Ankaran, but you can also walk over to Italy and take a train from Trieste. Along the trail, there's lots of bus stops at almost every major road. Very often you can end at a point where you can take a bus into a town that is close. For example, Krani is not actually on the trail, but it's easy to take a bus there if you want to stay in a hostel or take a rest day, and that's quite easy. The same is true in other parts of the trail, but generally the public transport is quite well. I have never had a problem that I couldn't get away or couldn't get to a point. The only thing that is quite hard is, I think at the second trail town, it's called Solchava. The bus to Solchava is only going twice a day. Other than that, I think the bus transport was always really great. If you don't want to hike the whole Slovenian Mountain Trail, but only a section of it, there's 2 recommendations that I can give you. My favorite part of the trail is really the Kamnik Alps. So I would recommend to start at the beginning in Maribor and then hike until right after the Kamnik Alps, that's Zgornje Jezersko. I'm probably pronouncing these names wrong, but I think you can find them on the map, so it's good enough. If you do this section that I just recommended, it will be around 160 kilometers and you should be able to finish this in 14 days. It's good to start at the beginning in Maribor because the Pohoje area will warm you up. There's a lot of forests and hills in the beginning, so not as much climbing, but then it really picks up speed when you get to the Kamnik Alps. So I think it's nice to combine these 2 areas into 14 days. The second really great section I think is the Triglav National Park, but this is also really crowded. So if you're looking for a solitude hiking experience, this is not what you're gonna find there. You could start in Moistrana or Dovje and then just hike the whole loop that is in the Triglav National Park and then end in Podbrdo, however you pronounce that. This is also around 150 kilometers, but a lot more of elevation gain. So I think you should also plan for around 14 days. If you don't want to hike all the way to Podbrdo, you can also end at Pas Jusic, which is the highest pass in Slovenia. It's quite a touristy place. There are several huts on the pass and a lot of people just stopping there to enjoy the view. But it's also a good point to end because there's public transport and it's easy to get away from there. So yeah, these are my two recommendations, definitely the parts of the trail which had the most extensive views, and if I had to go again and decide, I would definitely go to these sections again. So yeah, that's already everything I have to say. I hope that the video was helpful for some of you who are planning to hike this trail, especially when you're from outside Europe. It might be not so easy to find information about the trail. At the end of this video, I quickly want to mention that the best way to support this channel is by watching the videos, sending them to your friends, subscribing to the channel, and you can also purchase some of my artwork. I'm an illustrator. I don't really talk about that a lot in my videos, but I'm illustrating things that are outdoorsy, such as, for example, stickers. This is a badger that is ski touring. I also make shirts, and yeah, it's all kind of outdoorsy stuff that I'm doing, and yeah, every purchase helps to keep this channel running and fund my upcoming trips. So I'm very grateful for everyone, even if you're just checking out the shop. The link is in the description. So yeah, I hope this was helpful for you. And yeah, see you in the next video.